So I saw Life Itself last night.
Oh, good, you were there.
I wondered if it wasn't. Did you have an audience in mind? Because it feels like it's made for the people of Chicago.
Well, it is in a way. I mean, I think that's true. Am I talking to you or the camera?
You can talk to the camera if you
want?
like.
No, I would rather talk to you.
I'm right here.
Okay. It's, Roger had a love affair with the city of Chicago. He had many love affairs. And Chazz, of course, was his biggest love affair. But he had a true love affair with the city of Chicago, and I did want to capture that because, he's a guy that came from small town central Illinois. He was almost like George in It's a Wonderful Life, but he actually gets to leave and go see the bigger world. That was Roger going to Chicago.
I loved all that stuff. Now, I had read the autobiography, which is, of course, a must-read for anyone.
Yes.
And it's just so well written. But it also captures a time and a place. And you quote from the book. I mean, who was reading those things?
We found this incredible actor named Stephen Stanton, Stephen. That's right. It doesn't matter here, does it? I'm so used to.
You're thinking about the text world.
Yeah, exactly. Stephen Stanton, who is he's an actor that can impersonate anyone, but he's not an impersonator. He's an actor, and I thought he did a beautiful job.
It worked.
Yeah.
It didn't feel weird.
Yeah.
I mean, you knew it wasn't Roger, but
Right.
It sounded like Roger.
Yeah.
It was very well done.
It was beautiful.
It was a good choice. But so you have those things, and then you have the interviews that you did with Roger in the hospital room, and clearly he had a very strong hand. He gave you a lot of direction.
Well, in a way, I mean, Roger was very respectful of the process. I mean, from the get-go, he said, look, this is your film in the sense that, I'm not going to be trying to tell you what to do. And I actually said, you know what, thank you. But I think of these films, the films I do, as really kind of a collaborative undertaking with the people that I'm making the film on. I really do think of it that way. Yes, I get to make the final decision. I don't hand over editorial control or any of that.
From the Pearsons in Fiji to...
Yeah, and that was that tested my theories the best. But I really do. I said I want your thoughts. I want your thoughts on this as we go along. Absolutely, because I'm not threatened by that.
Well, I guess what I mean is that he wanted you to be candid.
Absolutely.
Which you put in the movie, and he wanted you to be, he was willing, I did not realize the extent to which the secretive last days of Gene Siskel and his cancer had influenced Roger's transparency.
Yes, exactly. Well, and how transparent he was with our filming in those last 4 months.
That's what I mean.
Yes, he was so insistent. And see, that's a side of Roger, even though he was very transparent in very public ways about his illness. What you see in this movie was not out there, because you would see him in public, but to allow us to film things like his windpipe being suctioned and actually want us to film it, he wanted that. To me, this spoke to him saying, look, you're going to capture my life the way it is, then capture my life.
Then the question becomes, how far do you go with that?
Right.
Where's the balance?
Well,
it's hard to watch.
It is hard to watch, and I think it's important for it to be hard to watch. But here was my hope, and maybe it worked for you, or maybe it didn't.
He was heroic. He was.
He was heroic, but what I also hope, Ann, is that I kind of want the viewer to have the same experience of it that I did when I made the film, which was initially it was hard for me to watch and see, and I was like, oh my God. But the more time I spent with him, the more I really came to realize he's still Roger, and when he smiles, it's Roger Ebert again, and it's like he's still got the same spirit, the sense of humor, the same will and determination that has sort of been who he's been all his life. And I hope that comes through. Maybe I'm not convincing you, but I hope that comes through.
Absolutely. No, I mean, the soul of Roger Ebert is what you're trying to capture, not the ravages of disease.
Yeah.
And I think that comes through. I didn't know, back to the Chicago part, that he had refused the job offer from the Washington Post. That was news to me.
Yeah.
That spoke to his love of and loyalty to his paper.
Oh, and he was so loyal. I mean, and we had that little section in there during the Murdoch years, where Murdoch came in, bought the paper, and people lost their jobs and they cut salaries. and tried to turn the Sun-Times into a very conservative paper. It was always a more liberal paper, and Roger stuck with the paper through thick and thin. He didn't like Murdoch, he didn't like what was happening in the paper, but he felt like he had to stay. He couldn't just abandon the paper and abandon his fellow employees.
But I think you're going to find that maybe it's because we're all journalists, but maybe because I'm one of those people who watched that show every Sunday night.
Yes,
I
me
mean,
too.
it's a ritual, and I miss it. I still miss it. That they, the love-hate story between Siskel and Ebert is the heart and soul of the movie, and the footage that you show of them, the off-screen banter and competitiveness and nastiness. It wasn't banter. It was much more than that. Where did you get that?
Well, it's there. Someone posted that some time ago. We tried to find the original, like who did it, because I wanted better quality, but I also wanted to know like what else is there.
Yeah.
You know.
Yeah, I wondered if you'd culled through all of it, and this was the only piece you used.
Well, there's more of it. We edited it down, but there's more of it. But it's all from that same sort of batch of outtakes that someone, thank God, connected to the show at one point just said, this is too good. We can't just let this get erased.
Now that was great. I didn't know he was a Playboy hanger-on either. That was not my image of him at all. That's so funny. Then the other question is Richard Roeper is not in the film.
Yeah.
Why isn't he?
Well, that's a really good question, and I actually exchanged emails with Richard about this about a month ago to kind of explain to him why. And I won't share that email with you, but I'll just say that Roger's memoir is 500 pages long, and I couldn't put everything in, and it's just one of those things I think you'd understand as a filmmaker. It's like, when we got to the part where Gene dies, and then the impact that death, as you mentioned earlier, had on Roger, and how he would deal with illness, the story just, for me, wanted to go there.
I understand.
And go to that part of his life.
It would have felt a little bit anticlimactic or something.
Yeah.
But they had a valid
absolutely. No,
relationship.
and trust me, and it'll.
But he's not even mentioned, really.
Yeah. No, he's not. But there's a lot of things that aren't in the film, and there are a lot of people that aren't in the film. I could have interviewed 100 people.
I loved the friends of Roger. I loved the beer, the bar, all of that. Okay, then the other, and I loved Richard Corliss and A.O. Scott and all those. It was all good. The process of editing it down. How much was Chazz involved? And did you bring her into the editing room?
No. At one point, a month or so ago, I showed her a rough cut of the film because I do that with all my subjects, Pearson's included, And I say, this is, when I do that when I think the film is getting close to being what the film is going to be, because I want to leave time to hear what they have to say, because my experience is the film has always gotten better from that process. Sometimes in small ways, sometimes in more significant ways. And so I showed it to her then, and I heard her thoughts on it, and we talked for a couple hours about the film and what was there, and why did you not interview Spike Lee, and I explained why I didn't interview Spike Lee, or, all of these things. So she gave me her thoughts, and we went off, and then I said, do you want to see it more finished? And she said, no, I want to see it at Sundance. I want to see it in all its glory.
She was pretty shook up, wasn't she?
Yeah.
If it had been me, I can't even imagine.
Yeah. Well, that's why I think it was important for her to have seen it in some fashion before this. If a subject chooses not to, that's one thing, but when filmmakers don't even offer it, I kind of have a problem with that.
Well, I can understand filmmakers' feelings, about someone like Roger. Scorsese was terrific. He was very open about his drug use.
Yeah.
In a surprising way,
Yeah.
I thought.
Yeah. Yeah.
Did you expect that?
Well, and the impact. Well, and I think he did that. I think he did that because he loved Roger and he wanted to be a part of this film, and I think he knew that moment in Toronto at the film festival, what Roger and Gene did for him was so significant to him that for us to really understand how significant it was, that he needed to tell us where he was at that time in his life. And it was indicative of the kind of relationship that Roger Scorsese developed over the years.
So where I was going is the filmmakers and, you know, the world of film criticism, all of that, but why do you think he had the impact on people, the love that he generated, which you saw at the screening yesterday?
Yeah. I think because Roger, first of all, Roger loved movies. And he reviewed movies from a vantage point of someone who just loved movies. But Roger also loved people himself, and he collected characters in his life. I mean, you saw some of the people, his old drinking buddies, and his best friend from college who can recite E.E. Cummings and Great Gatsby and any number of things he can recite. He collected people that he found fascinating, interesting, and people who had a sort of fullness of life in them. And you know, and it's really why, it's kind of like why I wanted to make the film to begin with, because if it had just been a film about a great movie critic who spent most of his life in the dark and then writing movie reviews, I would not have been interested in making that film. I was interested in Roger Ebert as much because of the fullness of his life apart from movies as what he gave to movies.
Thank you.